One thing that's come up with the recent Warframe update is of course the Oberon rework, and it does seem to be quite comprehensive in that we have most of his abilities remaining functionally similar but with some pretty important changes. One of his abilities did get a complete rework though, and his passive actually got straight up replaced. So naturally that has of course changed how I play him and of course how I've built him. If you've been away from Warframe for a little bit, let me remind you about what's changed with Oberon. Let's first off have a look at his passive. It used to be some kind of passive about giving his pets more survivability. That's no longer the case. It's now a much stronger version of the health conversion mod. If you collect any health orb, you and your allies will gain a floating shield with a maximum of 3 charges. If someone gets hit with a floating shield, one of these shield charges will eat the damage and then they get invulnerability for a very short period of time. So that way, if you're getting shelled at, you don't instantly lose all 3 of your shields. Now let's have a look at his first ability, Smite. It used to be an ability that targets an enemy and then sends balls all over the place that does damage equal to a small amount of that target's remaining HP, which ultimately adds up to being a pretty sizable amount of that target's remaining HP. Now it's an ability that targets that enemy still, but then makes this circular radial wave thing that does damage to all nearby enemies equal to a percentage of that target's remaining HP, and that percentage actually ends up being the actual total percentage of what those balls used to do. So essentially, it's a lot stronger now against a large group of enemies. The person you aim Smite at in the first place will also get all of their defenses removed. That includes shields, armor, and on top of that, overguard. Next, let's have a look at Oberon's second ability, Hallowed Ground. Instead of making a line of grass, you are now making a circle of grass by default, so you don't need to build massive amounts of range in order for that to become a circle. On top of that, you're also getting faster radiation application, which can be useful when we start looking at the builds that we're using on Oberon. Now with Oberon's third ability, Renewal, the main thing is that the energy drain is no longer affected by the amount of allies who are being healed, so Oberon will no longer be screwed over famously by someone like Necros. Meanwhile, if you are using Renewal on your allies, you don't need them to be standing on hallowed ground to get the armor buff as well. That is now tied to Renewal itself. And finally, we have Oberon's fourth ability, Reckoning. Basically, the big thing is that the armor strip that comes from this ability also doesn't need enemies to be on hallowed ground for it to work anymore, so that is also tied exclusively to Reckoning. Everyone who is hit by Reckoning also has a 50% chance to drop a health orb. Remember, these are the same kinds of health orbs that can give you and your allies the invulnerability buff. And finally, if you hit enemies with Reckoning, that will also give Oberon some armor. Those are, I think, the main points off the top of my head. There are some damage buffs as well, but they remain largely inconsequential. The big thing is that in missions that you can kill enemies rapidly, Oberon does find himself in the somewhat uniquely hilarious position of being basically permanently invulnerable. Honestly, this is both a good thing and a bad thing, but mainly it just means that you won't need the healing from something like Renewal anymore. It also means that you won't get hit, which basically means you won't be getting any energy from being a rage tank. It also means that you don't really need to build HP on him anymore as long as you can maintain that invulnerability. Honestly, this is the part of the rework that I'm not a huge fan of. I've tried playing a natural Oberon build, and outside of occasionally using Renewal to heal something like a defense target and the rare need to heal myself after I guess I've fallen asleep and somehow I've started taking health damage, I've found that I tend to keep Renewal off for the most part, and I've never really liked having redundant abilities on a Warframe that aren't particularly useful, so I feel like DE could maybe take a look at either giving Renewal something additional to use. The new passive does seem to give Oberon this niche, which is quite interesting, whilst Renewal being a heal over time is already something that quite a few Warframes already have. So I feel like this ability being replaced could actually be a pretty good idea. Hello everyone, welcome back. Before I continue and talk about what I've changed and how I'm playing with him, I just wanted to say thanks for checking this video out, and if you like this kind of content, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll be talking about Moslin next, I think, because there has been a bit of a change to arc guns, which has made arc guns a little bit more hilarious to play. So if you hit that bell icon, you can be notified of the latest content on the channel. On top of that, if you're a Genshin player, you may want to hit that bell icon anyway so that you can be notified of the next live streams that I'll be doing, where I'll be playing the Archon quest. I'll be playing the Archon quest a bit slowly, just over time. So yeah, we're not going to be in a rush to do everything all at once, but still that's going to be something that will be happening over time. And of course, if you can hype this video, if you have that option, feel free to do so, because that does seem to be boosting this video and all other videos in the algorithm. So I do want to thank everyone who has actually been taking their time to hit that hype button as well. So because I'm not finding myself using Renewal anymore, I've gone ahead and Helminth'd it out. There's quite a few options you have to replace it, but I've landed on Tesla Coils from Warframe. There's two reasons why I've gone for it. First one is, of course, Tesla Bank. This is an augment that can result in a big nuke that happens regularly on missions, especially against unarmed enemies, i.e., enemies who have been affected by Reckoning, for example. Archon Stretch is also the other reason, since I'm not using any channeled abilities anymore. So long as those Tesla Coils are attacking anything, I am actually getting 200 G a second, so that's actually kind of useful. I've also gone ahead and got myself something called R5 Arcane Universal Fallout. This is an arcane that you can get from something like Deep Archimedia, Temporal Archimedia. You can also get it from the Arcane Gacha now. What this does is basically when enemies have radiation status effects on it, they have a chance of dropping universal orbs, which are both health and energy orbs. Again, these are the kinds of orbs that can get you that invulnerability. The more radiation status an enemy has, the more likely they are to drop these orbs. Thus, Hallowed Round, being that faster radiation application, suddenly becomes super duper useful for this. Oh, by the way, this particular arcane is going for around about 30 plat a piece on the market right now. The Warframe market, the player market. So an R5 would cost somewhere around the 630 plat mark. I ended up buying this just almost outright. I used both the Arcane Gacha and just buying it from people. So yeah, there we go. I have like over 1,000 plat just sitting around doing nothing because I keep getting those, 50% off, 75% off coupons. So that's how I got it at the very least. But you do have other options that don't involve spending plat and buying them from people, for example. Here's the build that I'm running on Oberon. Because of all of the health orbs that I'm getting from Reckoning and Universal Fallout, as well as a few other ways and means, I'm running the almost standard at this point Equilibrium and Prime Flow combo, so that between, this and Archon Stretch, I'm pretty much never without energy on Oberon. Because of that, going all in on power strength without caring about efficiency at all does seem to work pretty well, but also getting as much range as possible does seem to be really useful. Without Renewal on this build, Archon Intensify doesn't work anymore, so yeah, we're out of that option. If I really feel like it though, I could potentially run an Umbral Intensify instead of regular Intensify, but I feel like that's not really worth it. There is another 60% power strength coming from something like Molt Augmented, and so between that and Power Drift, I just haven't really thought of anything else in particular. So with those two options, it's more of a can't go wrong with more power strength type dealio. On top of that, I have put on some Archon shards with a lot more casting speed, a bit more duration. I've got a scuffed preparation in there just to make things easier at the start of a mission. But then also we have the orange shard, which will increase my ability damage on enemies that are affected by radiation, which actually is pretty good for quite a few of my abilities, namely Smite and Tesla Bank. I could chuck on a couple more orange Archon shards for more ability damage on enemies that are hit by radiation, but honestly, it feels a little bit wasteful. Speaking of Tesla Bank, this is kind of the overall experience of what you can do with this augment on a Warframe like Oberon, who can actually do full armor strips as well as further boosting the damage in various ways. Obviously, this is some simulacrum maxing, but it does end up being something that seems to happen from time to time in missions. On top of that, I want to talk about Smite because it is actually extremely effective against heavy Eximus enemies and just other heavy enemies as well. With all the power strength that I have on Oberon, I should be hitting upwards of 90% of a target's HP in damage, but this ability actually has a cap at 75% of their HP so that it doesn't become too overpowered. The additional power strength that I have on this build though, even though it seems overkill for the initial hit, it does still go towards the radial hit doing more damage to everyone else. That has a cap of 30% of initial target's HP, and it does require more power strength in order to reach that cap compared to the initial hit. So using this on, let's say, a heavy enemy that is surrounded by a bunch of weaker enemies does tend to result in everyone else dying pretty easily. But between this and Tesla Bank, I think I'm pretty much good to go with regards to wide nukes in Oberon's gameplay. The only missions so far where I've maybe run into a problem would be some boss battles, especially the ones that don't spawn that many adds to fight with in the middle. I am mostly thinking of the fragmented one actually. So these would be the kinds of missions where perhaps a natural Oberon build that's a little bit more balanced, not going all in on power, strength and range, that might actually be the way to go for at least those kinds of missions. I think that's really all I have to say about the Oberon rework and the current state of Oberon. In summary, I think the rework is actually pretty good, but Renewal does seem to be a little bit out of place with regards to its usage and usability, so that kind of seems a little bit weird. I'm hoping that D would maybe find some time to have a look at that again and maybe give Renewal some additional functionality. We'll just have to see. Anyway, let me know about all of this in the comments below. How do you feel about the Oberon rework, and how are you playing with Oberon these days? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoy this. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Warframe content maybe, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.